Not in my wildest dreams, Matty, but just like you guys. I dreamt as a kid of faraway treasures, islands and pirates.
Stop everything. We've got something big. That's what Gary Drayton said the second his metal detector locked onto a signal so deep and so dense it shouldn't exist on Oak Island. Not a coin, not scrap, not debris. This was layered metal, stacked with purpose, exactly where legend says the Money Pit's greatest secret was buried. The dig shut down instantly. Data was pulled. And for the first time in years, the team didn't argue over theories, because the readings all pointed to the same terrifying possibility: a sealed vault. Experts now believe whatever Gary just found could be protecting over $100 million in treasure, untouched for centuries. After 220 years of failure and near misses, this signal might finally be the one they were always digging for. Like, subscribe, and stay locked in, because if this vault opens, Oak Island will never be the same. The tone coming through Gary's headphones isn't sharp or scattered like a coin spill. It's thick, dense, almost layered. The kind of sound that doesn't come from something dropped or lost, but from something placed, buried with intention. Gary slowly sweeps the coil again, just to be sure. The signal doesn't fade. It tightens, stronger at the center. He straightens up, his usual grin gone, and quietly says something he almost never says. This isn't just another Bobby Dazzler. Everything stops. Shovels come out of the ground. Machinery powers down. The team gathers in close as Gary explains what he's hearing. The detector isn't just picking up metal. It's registering compact, stacked responses, one on top of another, as if multiple metallic layers are sitting in the same vertical column. That's not how random debris behaves. That's not how ship wreckage scatters. That's how structures read underground. As technicians pull up the depth data, the tension spikes. The target isn't shallow. It isn't even mid-range. It's sitting far below where everyday colonial activity should exist. Below farming layers, below homestead debris, below anything that should reasonably be there by accident. Gary runs the scan again from a different angle. Same result, same density, same stacked response. Someone mutters that it looks too clean. Another crew member points out the signal edges are tight, almost squared off. This isn't noise. This isn't interference. It's a concentrated mass, holding its shape underground after centuries of pressure. The kind of thing engineers design, not nature. The team makes a decision on the spot. No aggressive digging. No rushing. This signal is treated like evidence, not treasure. Flags go up. Coordinates are locked in. Because whatever this is, damaging it could mean losing the answer they've chased for over 200 years. The narration doesn't exaggerate when it frames this moment as one of the most electrically tense scenes Oak Island has ever seen. Because for the first time, the data isn't vague. It's specific. When the depth readings are overlaid onto historical layers, the room goes quiet. The object sits well beneath known settlement zones, in a range usually reserved for legendary features, the same depths described in early Money Pit accounts, the same depths where old records claim a vault-like obstruction was encountered and then lost. Gary's detector readings show more than one metallic signature, not scattered horizontally, but stacked vertically, as if metal was laid down in stages. Coins don't do that. Tools don't do that. Ship fittings don't do that. Even chests collapse and spread over time. But reinforced chambers, vaults, are designed to resist pressure, to hold their form. One engineer pulls up reference data from known underground vault constructions, stone-lined chambers, timber reinforcement, metal elements used for structural strength or sealing. The similarities are uncomfortable. The more comparisons they make, the harder it becomes to dismiss what's forming beneath their feet. Someone finally says it out loud, not as a declaration, but as a question no one can ignore anymore. Are we looking at a sealed chamber? And that's when Gary's history changes everything. This isn't a rookie getting excited over a strong beep. This is the same metal detection expert who found the lead cross that reshaped Oak Island's timeline. The same man who pulled ancient coins, military buttons, and artifacts tied to European presence long before official records. Gary Drayton doesn't overreact. He doesn't force theories onto weak signals. When he slows down like this, it's because the signal demands respect. Gary explains that the pattern he's reading doesn't match loss. Lost items scatter. They tumble. They degrade unevenly. This signal is compact, intentional, preserved. Whatever is down there hasn't moved. It hasn't shifted. It hasn't been breached. And that's what sends a ripple through the entire team. Marty Lagina listens carefully as Gary finishes his explanation. Rick looks back at the monitor showing the stacked returns. No one argues. No one jokes. The silence isn't uncertainty. It's recognition. Everyone there understands the implication. If Gary is right, if this signal represents intentional storage rather than accidental loss, then every failed dig, every missed borehole, every near discovery over the past 2 centuries may have been circling the same target without ever truly hitting it. That realization doesn't end the moment. It sharpens it. Engineers immediately begin running precise depth calculations, feeding Gary's coordinates into layered models that cross-reference centuries of data. And almost instantly, the numbers trigger a sense of déjà vu. The signal sits at a depth that aligns almost perfectly with the legendary Money Pit estimates recorded more than 200 years ago. Not the shallow obstructions, not the later flood tunnels, but the depth early accounts described as the point where diggers struck something solid, something that stopped progress cold. Old journals referred to it vaguely as a vault layer, never fully explained, but repeated often enough to raise eyebrows. Seeing that same depth appear now, confirmed by modern instruments, sends a quiet shock through the room. Archived borehole data is pulled up next, and that's when the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Multiple previous drilling attempts passed frighteningly close to the anomaly now lighting up Gary's detector. Inches in some cases, feet in others. Enough to suggest they weren't wrong, just slightly off. The realization sinks in that the treasure hunters of the past may have been circling the target for generations, missing it by margins so small they'd never know how close they came. The frustration is palpable, but so is the clarity. This structure wasn't avoided by chance. It was avoided by design, either intentionally hidden or protected by the island itself. Maps begin to overlap on the monitors. Hand-drawn charts from the 1700s. Survey sketches from the 1800s. Modern satellite data and ground-penetrating scans layered on top of them. When the alignments settle, the anomaly sits in a position that strangely respects the older layouts, as if whoever buried it understood the terrain long before modern mapping existed. It's not randomly placed. It's centered, deliberate, and positioned in a way that makes sense only if someone planned the entire operation from the start. As soil samples come up from test cores around the site, another anomaly emerges. The clay composition doesn't match the surrounding earth. It's foreign, dense, and packed tightly in layers. Experts identify it as a non-native clay, the kind historically used to block water intrusion. On Oak Island, where flooding has destroyed countless excavations, this discovery feels almost mocking. Someone knew water would be a problem here. Someone planned for it. Fragments of wood appear next, but they're not splintered or decayed the way collapsed tunnels usually are. The edges are clean, tool-marked, hand-cut. These aren't remnants of a cave-in. They're structural elements, placed intentionally and preserved by the surrounding clay. When carbon dating results come back, the timeline pushes well before the 18th century. Older than documented colonial activity. Older than the earliest known digs. Older than anyone officially recorded as being on the island. The orientation of the materials tells its own story. Timber pieces align in consistent directions, reinforcing specific stress points. Clay layers are stacked where water pressure would be highest. Stone fragments appear in patterns that suggest load distribution rather than randomness. Engineers recognize the layout instantly, not as a natural formation, but as engineered reinforcement. The same principles used in underground vault stabilization, adapted centuries ago with limited technology, but advanced understanding. That realization reframes everything. This wasn't a hurried burial. This wasn't a panic stash. It was a calculated construction, built to last, designed to remain sealed, and meant to survive both time and interference. The island didn't just happen to protect it. The protection was built in. With size estimates now available, attention turns to what the chamber could realistically hold. Based on the anomaly's dimensions, the interior volume is significant. Enough space for chests, enough for stacked crates, enough for items too valuable to risk exposure. Conversations shift from whether something is there to what kind of something it might be. Gold and silver are obvious possibilities, but not the only ones. Historical relics, religious artifacts, items whose value isn't just monetary, but historical, symbolic, and explosive. Valuation experts begin rough calculations, conservative at first, then increasingly bold. Even a partially filled chamber of that size could push values into 8 figures. Fully loaded, the numbers climb past reason. Over $100 million becomes a realistic estimate, not hype. The phrase generational discovery starts circulating, and this time it doesn't sound dramatic. It sounds measured. This isn't a payday. It's a once-in-a-lifetime event. Marty Lagina brings the conversation back to reality. A sealed chamber at that depth, surrounded by waterlogged ground, is a fragile equation. Penetrate it the wrong way, and flooding could erase the structure before anyone sees what it contains. Collapse isn't a distant possibility, it's an immediate risk. The team understands what that means. For the first time, success isn't about reaching the treasure faster. It's about understanding who built it and how it was meant to survive. That need for certainty pushes the investigation deeper. Laboratory results begin arriving, and one detail immediately stands out. The lead fragments recovered near the anomaly don't match local sources. Their chemical signature aligns with earlier European samples already catalogued from Oak Island, samples previously linked to medieval-era metallurgy. Isotopic ratios point to lead mined in regions controlled by European powers centuries before documented transatlantic settlement. It isn't a coincidence, it's a repeat pattern. And this time, it confirms that whatever lies beneath Oak Island wasn't just hidden, it was engineered by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. As more fragments are examined, faint markings become visible along corroded edges. At first glance, they look like random scoring, but under magnification, the lines form deliberate shapes, simple crosses, geometric cuts, symbolic marks that mirror designs found on known Templar-era artifacts. No one claims certainty, but no one dismisses it either. The similarities are uncomfortable in their precision. especially given where the fragments were found, directly above and around a structure now believed to be a vault. Historians are brought in to weigh the implications, and their assessments deepen the mystery rather than simplify it. The construction techniques observed underground, layered clay barriers, reinforced timber, load-distributing stone, match methods documented in medieval Europe for protecting high-value caches. These weren't common practices. They were expensive, labor-intensive, and typically reserved for royal treasuries, religious orders, or organizations with resources and secrecy. The idea that such techniques could appear on a remote island in the North Atlantic centuries ago forces a re-examination of everything previously assumed. The theory resurfaces, not as fringe speculation, but as a structured possibility. Oak Island as a deliberate transatlantic cache. A place chosen not for convenience, but for isolation. A location difficult to access, difficult to understand, and nearly impossible to conquer without inside knowledge. If valuable or controversial items needed to be removed from Europe and hidden beyond political reach, this island fits the profile disturbingly well. As the data piles up, the question shifts from could it be connected to why would it be connected? Religious artifacts, documents, wealth extracted from collapsing power structures, items too dangerous, too valuable, or too destabilizing to leave behind. The vault beneath Oak Island begins to feel less like a treasure chest and more like a time capsule of secrets someone never wanted found. Then the island begins to respond. Ground stability readings change without warning. Areas that had been firm for weeks suddenly show signs of movement. Sensors register subtle shifts beneath the surface, as if pressure is redistributing itself around the dig site. Almost immediately after, water levels spike. Not slowly, not gradually, but abruptly, surging into test shafts with a force that catches everyone off guard. Equipment starts behaving inconsistently. Instruments that were calibrated hours earlier begin producing fluctuating data. Readings jump, then drop, then stabilize again with no clear explanation. Engineers run diagnostics and find nothing wrong. The equipment is functioning. The ground, however, is not. Veteran crew members exchange looks they've shared before. Oak Island has a reputation, and not just among treasure hunters. Over centuries, dig after dig has reported sudden flooding, collapses, and mechanical failures at the worst possible moments. Some dismiss it as geology. Others see a pattern that feels almost reactive, as if the island itself resists intrusion when someone gets too close to something important. As water pressure builds, the mood shifts. This isn't theoretical anymore. The risks are immediate. Every action now carries consequences that can't be undone. The vault, if it is a vault, has survived because it remained sealed. Breaking that seal incorrectly could trigger the very defenses designed to protect it. The team gathers to debate next steps, and the conversation quickly becomes tense. One option is drilling, a narrow, controlled borehole that could confirm the chamber's contents without fully exposing it. But drilling carries its own dangers. A miscalculated angle could puncture the vault, destabilize its structure, or release trapped water with explosive force. Once drilled, there's no undoing the damage. The alternative is full excavation, removing layers carefully and exposing the structure from the outside. It's slower, more expensive, and far riskier in terms of collapse. The deeper they go, the more pressure builds. One wrong move could cause the surrounding ground to give way, burying the vault or crushing it entirely. Marty Lagina listens to every argument, weighing not just the technical risks, but the historical weight of the moment. He finally says what everyone is thinking. but no one wants to admit. This isn't just another decision in a long list of digs. This is the biggest decision of the entire operation. The choice they make here will determine whether Oak Island finally gives up its secret or destroys it forever. Gary Drayton speaks last, his voice steady but firm. He reminds the team of the one fact that matters most. The signal is intact. The structure hasn't shifted. The readings still show a sealed interior. Whatever is down there hasn't been touched, hasn't been looted, and hasn't collapsed. It's still waiting. That understanding settles over the site, heavy and unavoidable, shaping every decision that follows. To protect what hasn't yet been disturbed, the team turns to technology that can see without breaking the seal. Advanced scanning equipment is brought in, pushing far beyond standard ground-penetrating radar. High-resolution imaging sweeps the target zone layer by layer, stripping away geological noise and isolating the structure in precise detail. As the data sharpens, the shape becomes impossible to dismiss. What appears on the screen isn't irregular, fractured, or organic. It's rectangular, clean, defined. 4 sharp edges standing out against the surrounding earth, as if drawn with a ruler. Engineers zoom in, adjusting depth filters and contrast levels, and the outline only grows clearer. Nature does not form shapes like this under compression. Sediment doesn't stack itself into straight lines. Collapse doesn't produce symmetry. The structure beneath Oak Island shows sharp corners, flat planes, and uniform proportions that defy any natural explanation. The room grows quiet as the implications settle in. Further analysis reveals something even more unsettling. The interior of the shape isn't solid. It's hollow. The scan shows empty space contained within reinforced boundaries, protected from surrounding pressure. This isn't a boulder. It isn't bedrock. It's a chamber. A void intentionally created and preserved underground. Measurements begin rolling in, and with them, another wave of disbelief. The dimensions align almost perfectly with historical vault records from Europe. Not colonial storage pits, not mining shafts, vaults, the kind designed to hold valuable cargo, sealed and reinforced to survive centuries. Length, width, height, all within ranges documented in medieval construction manuals. The odds of coincidence shrink with every data point. As the final composite image locks into place on the main monitor, conversation stops completely. No one speaks. No one moves. The structure sits there in stark clarity, no longer theoretical, no longer abstract. It is real. And for the first time in Oak Island history, the evidence doesn't rely on interpretation or belief. It relies on geometry. From that moment forward, the language changes. Experts stop calling it an anomaly. They stop using cautious terminology meant to leave room for doubt. In technical briefings and side conversations alike, the word chamber becomes standard. Soon after, even that feels insufficient. The structure has walls, reinforcement, an interior void, a deliberate seal. The team begins using the word they've avoided for years: vault. No one laughs when it's said. No one corrects it. It fits too well. Analysis suggests the vault has never been breached. There are no signs of collapse inside the chamber. No sediment intrusion. No structural deformation consistent with drilling contact. The interior space remains clean and intact, meaning every attempt before this moment either missed it entirely or stopped just short of penetration. The realization reframes every failure in Oak Island's long history. The problem was never that the treasure wasn't there. The problem was precision. Maps, boreholes, shafts, and tunnels from centuries of digging are reevaluated under this new lens. Patterns emerge that were invisible before. Lines of effort converging around the target, always close, never exact. Inches too far east, feet too shallow, degrees off in angle. The treasure hunters of the past weren't chasing a myth. They were orbiting a reality they didn't have the tools to fully see. Now, those tools exist. Planning shifts immediately. Engineers and safety experts collaborate on a controlled entry strategy designed to preserve the vault's integrity. No reckless drilling, no brute force excavation. The objective isn't speed, it's survival of the structure and whatever it contains. Entry points are modeled digitally. Water pressure simulations run continuously. Every scenario is tested, then tested again. The scope of the discovery expands beyond Oak Island. The stakes are no longer local. If the vault contains what the evidence suggests, its contents could alter historical narratives far beyond this island. Religious history, economic history, political history. The implications ripple outward, touching institutions, nations, and belief systems. This isn't just about wealth. It's about answers that were deliberately hidden. As preparations continue, Gary Drayton stands near the flagged site, staring down at the ground with a stillness that contrasts sharply with his usual energy. For years, his detector has spoken in hints and fragments. Today, it led him to something whole, something complete, something untouched. The weight of that moment shows on his face, not as triumph, but as respect for the builders, for the history, and for the responsibility now resting in their hands. The data is secure. The plan is forming. The vault remains sealed. If this vault opens, Oak Island will never be the same.